Hello everyone. I welcome you for today's lecture. And in today's lecture, we are going to learn the novel that we started, Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Gabriel Verne. So, dear children, I already gave you the introduction of the novel, but once again, I will revise and recap the entire lesson for you before we proceed with the next chapter of the novel. Now, it is not possible to get down the entire novel as your chapter, so a few final chapters are included as lesson for you. So the lesson starts where the main protagonist, the main hero of our novel, Phileas Fogg. Let us learn the important major characters of our novel as they are written on the board. Phileas Fogg, then Passepartout, Order, and Detective Fix. Then there are several characters, several minor characters that are mentioned in the novel. Now, the novel starts, the scene starts at the Reform Club. Now, most of the people belonging to the high class society prefer spending their evenings at the social and spending their social life at the clubs. So, our protagonist, Phileas Fogg, also was a member of elite class. He was a very rich guy in that sense. And every evening, he had a schedule or a routine of visiting the Reform Club. So at Reform Club, there is seen that there is a discussion going on about a bank robbery that had taken place recently. And while talking about that, they start talking about a bet or a wager that is it possible to travel the world, entire world, or have a round around the entire world in 80 days. So Phileas Fogg believes that it is possible to go around the world in 80 days, but other members of the reform clubs think that it is highly impossible to go around the world in 80 days. So they start a bet or they challenge Phileas Fogg that if you are possible in having a round around the world, we will give you 20,000 pounds. The wager is of 20,000 pounds. If you lose, if Phileas Fogg is not able to go around the world in 80 days, then Phileas Fogg has to give 20,000 to the members of reform clubs who are, who challenged Phileas Fogg. And $20,000, my dear children, is a huge amount. That would sum up as, half of the property of Phileas Fogg. But because Phileas Fogg has to prove himself, he accepts the challenge and he says, okay, yes, I can do it. And he takes up the bet and he starts on his journey. While going on the journey, we see that he is accompanied by his friend, by his helper, Passepat, and you can call him Passepartout, okay? Because it's a French name, it can be pronounced as Passepo, but we can call him as Passepartout, as it is as he is spelled there. So when they go on the journey, we see that it is an adventurous novel with giving which will give us goosebumps when you read the entire novel. So he meets various challenges, there are various obstacles that he comes across when he goes across the world, because he has to complete this challenge in 80 days. He has to keep in mind that every day is important for him. Okay, he spends a large amount of money of his wealth while he is completing his challenge. And what happened in the end, he is also followed by a detective Fix. Now you know who's a detective, right? Who's solving a case, a criminal case. Now Detective Fix thinks that it was Fogg who has done the bank robbery. He is the culprit, or he is the person main accused for the bank robbery. So Detective Fix also follows all the three of them, all the two of them throughout the journey which they take place. So, a very interesting novel, my dear children, which has been written by Jules Verne. Now, our writer is famous for writing such adventurous novel. He has written several classics, and some of his classics include this novel that we are studying, Around the World in 80 Days, is one of his best written novels. He has written some other novels as well, which are Journey to the Center of the Earth. This is another novel written by him. Then 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which was written in 1870. And our novel that we are studying right now is written in the year 1873. Now, our writer, Julius Gabriel Verne, is one of the most translated writers around the world. He has written this classic in French language, and it has been later translated by other writers into other vernacular languages, okay, in other languages. So let us begin. Now, I have already given you the theme of the play. The theme of the play starts when with the discussion at the Reform Club, and then Fog, Passepartout, and Order. Order is a young girl whom they meet when they are in India. Okay, in India they come to a place called Mumbai, and then they move on to Kolkata because they have to continue the journey to the other parts of the world. So Phileas Fogg rescues Order from a problem in India, and from there he accompanies, he carries over and he gets Order with him to complete his journey. So Oda is another female character, or the only female character of the novel. Now here, when we study about the characteristic of Phileas Fogg, Phileas Fogg is a rich person, a very rich and a sophisticated kind of person who lived a very limited social life. He thought that money is everything in the world, and he did not give importance to human relations in his life. But at the end of the journey, he realizes that it is not money that is very important, but even human relations add value to our life. So, in the last video, we studied the first chapter of this lesson, which was chapter number 34. We have already discussed the theme, the plot, and the synopsis of the novel. First part, we saw that when they arrive in London, these three of them, okay, now you have to keep in mind while studying a novel that each and every incident is interlinked to each other, and it has a high impact on the incidents which are going to happen in future. So will Fogg be able to complete his challenge? Will Fogg win this amount of 20,000 pounds, or he has to give 20,000 pounds to the Reform Club members? So in last episode we saw that Fogg, Oda, and Passepartout arrive at the London terminus, and there he gets arrested by Detective Fix. Detective Fix gets an arrest warrant, and he arrests Fogg for doing robbery at the bank. Now we know that our protagonist is innocent. He has not committed any robbery, but he has been thrown into the prison, and Passepartout and Oda are extremely helpless. They cannot do anything. They are just seen waiting outside the jail. But later on, then Detective Fix comes running, and he releases him from the prison. He says that you are innocent. Someone who looks just like you, a look-alike, जो आपकी तरह दिखता है, has been arrested a few days ago for committing the robbery. Now Phileas Fogg gets very angry and he punches him down on the ground. Now you can understand when someone accuses us and throws in the prison when we have not done anything. Now why he gets really furiated? Because he has to complete his journey. Okay, he is already running out of time, and he has to reach and win the battle, or he has to win the challenge that he is in already. Okay, then finally they all run to the terminus, and they catch a flight and they move on. Okay, but in all these things they have already wasted one entire day, which was very crucial for them to complete the challenge. 80 days के अंदर इनको ये challenge complete करना था, but unfortunately because he gets arrested falsely and he's thrown in the prison, he loses one day. Okay, now let us see what interesting thing happens in the second chapter. Okay, in the next chapter that is there in our textbook, which is on page number 193, in this chapter Phileas Fogg does not have to repeat his order to Passepartout. Now what happened? What is there mentioned? Now he thinks that he has lost the wager, he has lost his bet because he couldn't reach home on time. The dwellers in Savile Row would have been surprised the next day if they had told that Phileas Fogg had returned home. His doors, windows were still closed, and no appearance of change was visible. Now, people in Savile Row, where he lived, did not know that they have come back because the doors and the windows are still closed. After leaving the station, Mr. Fogg gave Passepartout instruction to purchase some provision and quietly went to his domicile, quietly went to his room. He bore his misfortune with a habitual tranquility, ruined by the blundering of the detective. Now he was really, you can call it a misfortune or a bad luck. Ki, जीती हुई बारी बाजी वो हार गया because of the mistake or the big blunder, a big mistake that happened because of detective Fix. It was not his fault. He lost the bet because of that foolish detective. Okay, but what could be done? He was utterly sad and he was utterly disappointed for his thing. Okay, after having steadily traversed that long journey and overcoming hundreds of obstacles, braved by many dangers on his way, and he was unable to achieve his goal. After doing so much of hard work, so much of challenges, so much of difficulty, somehow, it is really bad. We feel very bad if you keep yourself in place of fog. When you are so close to your target and you just miss it, that is a big loss for any person. Okay, so you can understand what was happening or what was going on in the mind of fog. Okay, but a few pounds were left of him, of the large sum of money. Now he has spent a lot of money in this, completing this bet, because he traveled across the world and he has spent a lot of money there. Okay, there are only remained of his fortune the 20,000 pound deposited at Barings, and this amount he owed to his friends of Reform Club member. Now only 20,000 pounds are remaining in his bank. Now, why is that amount remaining? Because that amount he owes to the people of Reform Club, because he has lost the bet. So great has been the expense of his tour. He has spent that large amount of money in his tour. Okay. And it is probable that he had not sought to enrich himself, being a man who rather laid wagers for honor than sake of the proposed. But this wager totally ruined him. He is a man who did not do to make himself rich. He just took up this wager, he just took up this bet to prove himself to the others. Okay, when it comes to your self respect, he could not control himself and he said, I will do it. He was not financially poor that he needed that sum or that money. Okay, now let us see what happens. A room in the house of Savile Row was set apart for order. Now don't forget that they have also brought a woman with them back to Savile Row. Now this woman whom they rescued from a danger or from some problem, they have brought order with them, because folk thought that I am a rich man, I can do something for her, I will establish her, I will give her some fortune, some money, and she will live with him. But unfortunately, he himself is on the verge of getting, becoming bankrupt. From the words which Mr. Fogg dropped, she saw that he was meditating on some serious project. Now, Pasipataut was a good help to Fogg, and he was really upset because he knew that the person who was with them in the entire journey was no other than Detective Fix, and he did not tell Fogg that this man is a detective. He is not an ordinary man. He is a detective. Okay, and Fogg has become very serious, very grim. He is not eating anything. He is not talking to anybody. He has just locked himself in the room. And these two people, Oda and Pasipataut, are outside the room, and they are feeling very helpless because they cannot do anything to comfort Fogg. Okay. Now, next morning, the other day, Fogg called Pasipataut and told him to get breakfast for Oda, a cup of tea for her. He desired Oda to excuse him from the breakfast and dinner, as his time would be observed in putting all day's affairs right. He told Pasipataut to provide Oda with breakfast and other necessities, because he would be busy in doing all the other activities of his financial works that he has to do. Okay. Now, Pasipataut, having received his order, had nothing but obey the orders. He was a very obedient servant, a very obedient helper, and he could just obey his master without uttering a word. He looked at his imperturbable master, and he could scarcely bring to his mind and leave him. Now, he was very upset looking at his master, and he was feeling so remorse, he was feeling so hurt that I cannot do anything to console my master, or what can I do to make him happy or to make his mood better? Yes, if I had warned Mr. Fogg and had betrayed Fix's project to him, the master could have been, in a winning position. Okay. My master, Mr. Fogg, he cried. Why do you not curse me? It was my fault that. Now, why is he saying this statement? It was my fault because he thinks that he could have warned his master that this detective is behind you for some reason, and Fogg could have saved that problem, or he could have saved a day if he was warned earlier. Okay, and he did not wanted to blame Pasipot out for any reason, because he knew that whatever happened had happened because of his bad luck. Now, he said that now it's okay. Now I have lost the bet. I have no problem for you, and I have no complaint with you. So he said, just go and give my message to Oda that in the evening I want to talk to her. Okay, because since he accompanied Oda, since he brought Oda, it was his responsibility to take care of Oda. She was her responsibility. But he is at a stage where he cannot take care of himself. How would he take care of Oda? So he said that he would like to talk with Oda. So just pass on my message to Oda. And Oda became very happy when she got the message that Fogg wants to talk to her. Throughout this day, that was Sunday, the house in Savile Row was uninhabited. Now, people were living in the house, but it was absolutely silent. Now, why the house was absolutely uninhabited? Because nobody was in a mood of talking to each other. There was absolutely stunning silence in the house. Okay. And Phileas Fogg, for the first time since has lived there in that house, did not set out for his club. For the first time in his life, Fogg did not go to the club as he used to do usually. Now, we have studied in our previous lecture that Phileas Fogg was a regular visitor to the Reform Club. That was the only day in his life where he did not go to the Reform Club. At, and the time was the same time that he used to go for the club. Okay, now let us see what happens in the coming chapter. Okay, so Phileas Fogg shuts the door behind him and he tries to do some work, and he tries to keep himself busy without going out and talking to anybody in the house. Okay, finding himself too wretched to remain alone, he knocked at Oda's door and went into her room. After trying to do something, he is so upset that he is trying to distract himself by doing some work, but he is unable to concentrate on that work. So finally, he goes to Oda's room, the room where Oda is staying. And without speaking, he just went and he sat down in her room, and he looked ruefully to a young woman. Oda was still pensive. Pensive means serious. Oda also had a grim look on her face. About 7:30 in the evening, Mr. Fogg sent to know if Oda would receive him, and in a few moments he found himself alone with her. Phileas Fogg took a chair and sat down near the fireplace opposite Oda. No emotion was visible on his face. He was very serious because he did not know. He's already lost the wager, he's already lost the bet. And now, what can I tell this young woman? What am I going to talk to her? Okay. After waiting in silence for long time, he says, Madam, will you pardon me for bringing you to England? Now he is apologizing. After, he is a very sophisticated man, and he knows that he has brought this woman and he took up the responsibility of her, and now he is in no condition to take care of her further. So he's saying, I am extremely sorry for bringing you to England with me. Now let us see what Oda replies. She says that, now what Oda says, I, Mr. Fogg, his heart was beating faster. Please let me finish, returned Mr. Fogg. When I decided to bring you far away from the country which was so unsafe for you, for Oda, I was rich and counted on putting a portion of my fortune at your disposal. Now, here he is telling her the real reason of bringing Oda out of the out of the country that Oda was. Oda was living in India, but there she has, she was facing some trouble. So he accompanied her with him. He thought that because I am so rich, I will give some fortune to Oda and she will live in England with him. But unfortunately, now I have nothing left with me so that I can give that to you. But now I am ruined, he says. Now I am destroyed. I am at the verge of being bankrupt. Okay, so he is apologizing to Oda. I know it, Mr. Fox, replied Oda. And I ask you in my turn, will you forgive me for having followed you? And who knows, for having perhaps delayed you and contributed to your ruin. Now, ये conversation बहुत important है इस chapter को लेके, because यहाँ से एक हमारे novel में एक twist, एक turn interesting आने वाला है. Now, ये दोनों एक दूसरे को sorry कह रहे हैं. पहले तो फॉग अपोलोजाइज कर रहा है कि मैं आपको यहाँ लेकर आया बट अभी मैं आपको कुछ नहीं दे सकता क्योंकि मैं खुद you can say मैं खुद bankrupt हूँ, I don't have money. Oda is saying that maybe because of saving me in India, you lost one day and you wasted a lot of time behind me. So maybe मैं ही responsible हूँ आपके इस situation के लिए. So Fogg says, not content, with rescuing me from the terrible death, you thought yourself bound to secure my comfort in a foreign land. Okay. Yes, but now, as for me, he's saying, I have need of nothing. But how do you look upon the fate, sir, that awaits you, as I am in the habit of doing? At least, said Oda. Now, here, what we understand that now Oda proposes to Fogg for marriage. Oda says that I want to marry you. Okay. Instead of Fogg proposing to Oda, Oda proposes Fogg that, sir, I would like to marry you and I would like to stay with you. In whatever situation we are, we will face the fate together. Now, Fogg was not expecting this reply from Oda, so he gets very surprised and he becomes very happy. Now, he could not say directly, if he would have won the bet, he would have happily proposed Oda for marriage. But now, because he has lost it, because he could not make it on time, he was saying sorry, he was apologizing. But in return, Oda proposes him for marriage. Now, what happened? Okay. And what happened? What would have happened? You can think about it. So Fogg also loved Oda and he immediately says yes for marriage, and they both are extremely exhilarated and they both are overjoyed. So they called for Pasiput out. So Pasiput out is called immediately, and Fogg, still holding Oda's hands, and Pasiput enters and he understands looking at the radiance of the face. They both were looking happy, overjoyed. Okay. And what he says is that Mr. Fogg tells him that go and call a reverend. Reverend ka matlab hota hai a clergy, a religious priest. Okay. Who does all the religious things. So he asks him to go and call Reverend Samuel Wilson of Marylebone Parish, of Marylebone Church. Go and get the priest from that church and tell him that I want to get married to Oda. And Pasipataut runs and he goes to get the priest. Okay. Pasipataut smiled his most genial smile and said, never too late. Here I go. Because he is very happy to get his master married. Okay. It was 5 minutes past 8 and will be for tomorrow, Monday. Now, they all were thinking that today is Sunday, the day when all these things are happening. Sorry. So, it was Monday where Fogg and Oda are to get married. For tomorrow, Monday, said Fogg, turning to Oda. Yes, for tomorrow, Monday, she replied. Pasipataut hurried off as fast as his legs could carry him. So, now here we see that they both are getting married. They both are very happy. They both are now going to get married. And Pasipataut is all set to go and get the priest from this parish or the church where he belongs to. And let us see what happens in the coming part of the novel in the next video. Okay. Thank you.